Okay, I'm delighted now to be joined by Jacob Peterson. He's the CEO and co-founder of Sweden's Remeat. Jacob, welcome to Protein Production Technology International.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Now you're building something really interesting with Remeat at a time when cell-cultivated meat is at a bit of a crossroads, scaling up, driving down costs, and trying to win over both consumers and partners. So let's start by helping our readers get a sense of your journey and the big picture behind Remeat. For those of people listening who don't know Remeat, can you give us a quick snapshot of what you're working on and what sets you apart in the cultivated meat space?
Yes. So basically, we're simplifying a very complex industry by moving away from what seemingly a lot of others do, trying to replicate pharmaceutical approaches, ingredients, processes, equipment, and instead mirroring the process of brewing beer. Our team is it's quite a senior team from having been in the global beer brewing industry for 20 plus years, and we're currently developing what we call the food brick, and the food brick is a turnkey solution where you which can be licensed out to big food and meat companies wanting to produce cultivated meats and precision fermentation at low cost.
Uh-huh. Now, you've been involved in food and biotech innovation for quite a while. What drew you to cultivated meat specifically, and why now?
Yes, I think there were two things. One was obviously the impact potential. I think this is one of the biggest potentials across all industries. If you look at research, what matters most. That was the first thing. Second was that when I got interested in cultivated meat, I actually reached out to a lot of the founders around the world. And it was pretty clear that mine and my co-founder, Gitan's skill set, coming more from a food and industry upscaling and commercialization angle, that was really, to a large extent, at least, lacking in the industry, being more R&D focused. So I think that's one of the keys to really unlock the future here is to focus on the commercialization.
We're at a pivotal time for the sector. How would you describe the mood among innovators right now? Cautious, optimistic, or something in between?
Yeah, I think it's like three big things. Obviously, still optimistic. I think founders would move away from the industry into doing something else with all of their energy if they weren't still optimistic. They're a bit more cautious though with how we spend our money, obviously, because it's been quite tough time to get the money. And then I guess finally, everybody's trying to create revenue from sort of anywhere, which at many times can distract actual progress, unfortunately. So, but I guess it's needed as well.
Now, one of the biggest conversations happening in the sector right now is around cost, and specifically how to break free from that legacy of pharma grade processes, which you guys are doing. You've been outspoken about the urgency of that shift. It's time for bold moves, you've said in the past. Can you unpack that a bit? What do you think the industry needs to stop doing right now to move forward?
Yeah, so I guess one is obviously we need to prove that meat can be grown at scale. That's one thing. The other thing, so we really need to get out of the lab. Now we can't remain there for the next decade. I get it that there's still challenges, but I think a lot of it has also to do with the mindset. Do we need firsthand now to do a one-to-one replication of meats, or can we think about the products in any other ways? Can we use them in hybrids? Can we use them for, as we see many companies now pivoting away into pet food, for example? Can we use them in alternative ways that is not a one-to-one replication of what humans tend to think of as meat? I think that's one thing. And then we need to, as an industry, come together and think more about commercialization, because one thing is scale up, but if we're not meeting the scale up ability with commercial demand, then it doesn't matter that we can scale up. So we need to do both.
Mm-hmm. Now, the default to pharma grade materials and processes, that made sense in early R&D, but what are the most obvious opportunities now to cut those costs without compromising safety or quality?
Yeah, so I'll get into some specifics of what we're doing and based on our beliefs, I think we obviously need to eliminate unnecessary engineering standards that are out there, eliminating unnecessary needs for documentation. We need to move to food grade, away from pharma grade. A lot of the costs driving pharma grade equipment is actually documentation and certifications, which is not necessary in food to that extent. We need to, optimize automation levels at different scales so that we can drive down costs, and just optimization in general to reduce operational costs. So it's a bunch of different things, but really we need to be bold about it and try things out, and not just stick to what we know works.
So what's your message, Jacob, to startups still clinging to high cost purity or over engineering? Is it about mindset, business model, or something else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a biotech engineer by training, nor a molecular biologist, so maybe half of the industry will hate me for this, but I think progress over perfection is really what we need now, because we do not have yet another decade to try things out. We really need to just move into scaling and commercialization with whatever we have. So, and that's what I mean. We need to think about maybe more creatively, how can we offset the products that we can create at this moment?
One of One of the other challenges is a lack of coordinated effort. Many companies are solving the same problems in parallel. You've been a strong advocate for more collaboration, not just on tech, but on go-to-market strategies too. So why is now the moment to drop the secrecy and start working together openly as an industry?
So both mine and my co-founder's background is within mobilizing value chains, open innovation. How can we create new markets, move into new areas of expertise that, like, as big companies, we didn't know about before, and how can we then collaborate with the value chain across it to gain these insights and experiences that you don't have previously. And every time we've done this in the past in other industries, and within the food industry, you simply see magic happen. There's something when you cross nurture experiences and insights instead of just thinking in silos. Obviously, you need then to create the win-win situation so that everybody wants to engage. So we need to think more about also, go-to-market, joint go-to-market efforts, maybe, and these kind of things, and also, yeah, with the big food companies who have the power, they're the power players in this industry, of course.
Yeah.
So how do we involve them?
Where do you see the biggest gaps that collaboration could solve? Is it tech, infrastructure, supply chain, consumer messaging?
So I think it's twofold. Going back to what I said earlier, tech. I think we're developing more of the hardware solution, so the bioreactors and the downstream processing, taking the responsibility for the hardware, the processing, but we also want. It's such an immature market that we can't rely on. I don't think there's any big food company or meat producer who would like to, buy the bioreactors from one player and then go get the growth media from somebody and cell lines from somebody else. That's not how it works. You want to buy a solution that works. So we're really we're trying to figure out how can we create that turnkey solution with our hardware and then with somebody else's cell lines and growth media, so we quicker can move towards that.
Mhm. Now, I often hear that everyone is trying to reinvent the wheel in their own silo. So, for you, what would a smarter, more collective approach to go to market look like for cultivated meat?
Yeah, so I think first of all, get together and prove that, like, identify companies that can, for example, if I would have been a growth media or a cell line developer, I would look for somebody like Remit who can really radically lower the cost of production equipment, because that's needed too. So you need to identify who else is doing something that complements what we're doing, and then go together and try to, as I also mentioned, create this turnkey solution that you can offer to the markets, and then you can get better paid because you're actually solving a problem. You're just not just supplying one puzzle brick, but you together you create this right? But of course, it's scary. It's different founders out there owning their companies, at least parts of their companies, and it's their babies. So just because collaborating also means losing a bit of the control. Uh,
Mhm. Now,
which
collaboration.
is potential. Right.
Yeah. Now, collaboration isn't just about the startups. You've already alluded that the large food companies and traditional meat producers, they're essential to making cultivated meat mainstream as well. But engagement so far has been pretty inconsistent. So let's dig into what's going on there. Big Food, Jacob, has shown flashes of interest, but many are still hesitant. What do you think is holding them back from making stronger commitments to cultivated meat?
Yeah, I think one thing is that we need to move from theory into reality. So um, I guess these are smart people. They're used to working with startups that have products that could be on the shelves in a month. If they decide to engage with them, and cultivated meat, it's pretty different. The food industry in general have lower R&D budgets than most other sectors. So they're not used to engaging this early. And they also want to see that they can actually make it a revenue from this collaboration in not too long term. So they need to be we need to prove to them that this is not as far ahead into the future as it has been before.
Mhm.
And I think that entails being able to show them the products, being able for them to taste the products, but not made from the laboratory, but made in a big bioreactor,
Mhm.
so that they can see the full process and that the product actually comes out of this.
And how are you approaching these conversations with incumbents? Is it about offering proof points, partnership structures, or just shifting the narrative?
Yeah, so I think one obvious shift from an investor perspective during the last 5 years has been that the investors don't care about loose LOIs, letters of intents that the big food corps can just tear out the day after. They're really looking for real demand, and real demand shows itself in terms of money. So what we're trying to do specifically is we're selling something called pioneer agreements. Pioneer agreement is something where you as a big food company, you get a seat around the table. You get to take part of what is happening. We do development together. We do prototyping. We think about will we communicate this? How will it fit into your portfolio? But also then giving them in exchange for this early investment, which is not an equity investment, but in just a pure revenue for us, a right of first offer when the turnkey solution is ready to be licensed out.
Mhm. What do you think the tipping point will be that gets traditional meat companies fully on board? Would it be cost parity or regulations or consumer demand?
Yeah, I guess I think it's regulatory and technology. I think from a consumer perspective, there has been quite a bunch of studies across the world showing that the demand for, or at least the anticipated demand for cultivated meat is pretty high compared to a lot of other alternative proteins. If you look at Sweden, I think the would you buy this rate was like 38% of the population compared to insects, which was down at 16. So I think there it is. We're collaborating with a bunch of the big food companies here in Scandinavia, and they all agree that the at least the say evidence from consumers is that this is going to be demanded. So I think it's more in terms of technology being able to show moving away from theory to reality, show them that this works at scale, that makes financial sense, because at lab scale it doesn't. So yeah, next step in technology wise.
Do you think the established producers are starting to view cultivated meat as a threat or as an opportunity, or is it still a bit of both?
Depends on who you talk to. Our experience is if you talk to a meat producer who is owned by or owns a lot of slaughterhouses and farms and these kind of establishments, then it's considered mainly a threat today. If it's more of a family-owned business where they just buy the meat from somewhere else and then they just process it, then it's more of an opportunity, because then they could potentially license this technology and build up production themselves, and by doing so, becoming more sustainable, lowering prices, securing demand. There's a lot of things within the established meat supply chain that causes a lot of problems. Sometimes you don't even know how many cows, how many pigs will come this day. So the S&OP, the sales and operations planning, is really tough. So in Sweden, you have something called the meat balance, which there's a higher demand for minced meat than the whole cuts. So often the big food producers, they have to mince down the fine whole cuts as well, leading to lower margins. So and we also import 50% of the meat, and in a world where maybe climate is not as important as it has been, but food security and resilience and national food production, all these kind of things, becoming more important due to geographical, political tensions, then it's becoming more of an opportunity for them. But it's hard to convince them. We need to move from theory to reality.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we let you go and look to the future, are you able to give us a couple of your key milestones as a company? Could be technological, could be a key hire.
Yeah, so we're actually, we just closed an oversubscribed financing round. So we're using that money to establish a pilot facility. It's not a pilot facility in the sense that many other companies in this space have done before. It's really, really radical in terms of pushing the boundaries towards food grade, away from pharma standards. That will be up and running in November this year. So we do invite others to come and try their processes out, their cell lines, their growth media within our process equipment, and together then form. Could be joint ventures, could be separate companies, but common go-to-market strategies. How will we then together take this to the market? And this can be not just cultivated meat, but can also be used for precision fermentation purposes. So that's a big milestone we're having this year.
Now, if you could change just one thing about how the cultivated meat sector operates today, what would it be?
Yeah, I think returning to collaboration. And when I say collaboration, it's not just having networks and talking to people. It's like working together. I think there was a time in the beginning of this industry when everybody was a full stack company and they did everything because nobody had done anything of it, so they needed to do it. And then come a time when everybody pivoted, took a step back and specialized. So some became growth media specialists and cell line and bioreactors, and we have a few full end-to-end companies. But I think the time now has come where we need to sort of come together and work together more on a go-to-market and scale-up approaches instead of being in those silos.
Yeah. I think the reality is that cell cultivated meat companies will end up being part of the meat supply chain, I would imagine. But what's one piece of advice you'd give to founders or scientists entering this space right now, based on your experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's a really tough question. I guess, sounds fluffy, but staying optimistic and we need to solve a few things before we can scale. And I think you should just use your energy to solve one of them, and then collaborate, because a big obstacle is when you're trying to do too much. Then you spread your resources thin, and you simply run out of money. And it's also harder to create or reach milestones that increase the company valuation and attracts more investors. So really focus on something which you would become best at. and then try to open up the doors and invite others in to collaborate on how we will create sort of a full offering to the food industry.
And finally, Jacob, let's fast forward a few years. What does success look like for Remeat and for the cultivated meat sector as a whole?
Yeah, so I think within the next 5 years, we obviously need to have made a dent in the universe somehow. We need to have convinced some of the big food players globally to really not just stand on the sidelines, but really engage in this and put money on the table and invest in infrastructure. Because it's really tough to change an industry as a startup, especially food, which is really conservative and people just hate behavior change when it comes to food. So we really need the established food companies to get into the game and see the potential. And I think that the first ones who will do that will be the ones who get an advantage over the others. So as a big food company, I wouldn't wait too long because I think a lot of exciting stuff are going to happen the next few years.
Jacob, thank you very much for a very insightful conversation. We'll be following your progress closely and wish you and your team continued success.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.